there's a yurt, a gur, and you go up to it. They open their doors, they feed you, they take care of your horse, and you sleep with them in their house that night. And that's everyone everywhere. It's really an interesting thing.
And I'm sure you encounter situations like this where you'd be out, didn't have time to make it back into the city or wherever, you're in between runs.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you had quite a few nights spent.
Yes, it's just random. You just show up and the language is intensely challenging. I know very few words. And you just end up sign languaging your way through a night with this random Mongolian family.
So you would just truly just show up to a stranger's house?
Yeah. Well, and they're so aware of their surroundings. Their situational awareness is at a level that they'd be like, oh, there's somebody. There's some big dude on a dirt bike. We don't see that. And then pull up and they're like, they would talk to you in Mongolian. You would not understand them. You'd respond in English. They would not understand you. But then they would be like, and you'd be like, oh, sleep. And they'd be like, come on. They'd feed you some of the worst food on earth.
Actually, I love that you said that, because I think most of the people here probably had some not so great meals in rustic places. And
it's been the worst.
Yeah. I'm curious, though, culturally, did that take any kind of, were there any mental barriers to overcome with that? Because I think here, at least, especially in the States, hospitality is obviously expected and a good trait that people respect. But I think there's always that little bit of shame as well that you're imposing on somebody. Was there any kind of mental barriers that you had to overcome to feel comfortable showing up to strangers' homes, or were you able to kind of flip that switch and say, well, this is how they do it here?
Pretty quick, you flip the switch. Some people had more issues. I got pretty used to it pretty quick, but also it's not like there's an option.
Yeah.
One of the only words I know to say in Mongolian, which I'm not even sure which one it is to say I'm full. Because they just keep feeding you, and you're like, no, I don't need any more rancid goat.
Yeah.
I have had my fill of rancid goat. You get rancid goat and noodles, or rancid goat and rice. And those are pretty much your two staple meals there.
Did you end up with a favorite cut of rancid goat?
They don't do cuts.
No.
It was.
You didn't become an eyeball guy or anything like that?
No. I've had a lot of the organs. They love the organs. They think the organs are the best part. I've had some very, very horrific meals there.
What was the least horrific organ you've eaten?
But I got a good story about it, and it's kind of a tangent. We were up in the reindeer tribes in the Altai Mountains. This is after the race. Me and 3 others, we went up to see the reindeer tribes, which are Mongolian herders, but they live up in the mountains and herd reindeer, and that is their livelihood. And they live not in yurts, but in teepees. And we're there, and one of the guys is like, oh, I really want a ceremonial meal. I want to have a special meal. And I'm like, Eric, you don't want to have a special meal. You've been here more than me. Nothing good can come from this. And he's like, no, I want to do it. I want to do it. So he communicates to a translator, gets the hosts. Yeah, you can see there, what's amazing is how small they actually, just because of malnutrition and et cetera, that was the grandfather of the family there that herded the reindeers.
Wow.
And I'm like, Eric, don't. And he's like, no, I want this. I was like, oh God, this is horrible. And it was, and he threw his little, a little kerfuffle about it, and they went to town and they got a goat, and it was late, and we were waiting to eat. And Kazi was with us, and he's a vet. And he goes inside the teepee and just comes back out, and he's like, oh, worst part of being a vet is I know what they're doing. I know what those parts are.
Do they ever eat the reindeer?
Yeah.
Because I feel like
reindeer's delicious.
On paper, it sounds like it tastes pretty good.
Yes, no, it is delicious. We didn't eat a lot of reindeer because it's summer there. That's not the time to do it, and it's also that's their cash animal. So they again so they eat the oldest goat. The oldest, nastiest animal in their herd is the first. That's how they cycle through.
Yeah.
They're like, we're out of meat. They have no refrigeration. They just hang it on the walls it'll be 90 degrees, the meat's hanging out, and that's how you knew if there was a lot of meat on the walls, it was okay to eat. If they just pulled down like the 3 or 4 nasty little pieces up on the ceiling, you knew you were not going to have a good night. That was going to be a bad day.
Pop the Pepto-Bismol.
Oh, nothing would stop it. So yeah, it's just. Oh.
What about the fermented horse milk?
Oh,
I mean,
Erig.
that's the staple, right?
Erig is not bad. It sounds horrible. You're taking, this is a typical container. They use a milk jar and chain it down. Sometimes you'll
Like
see
a
it
bike chain?
Yeah. Everything works there, and that's just an inner tube that they've used to seal it, to keep in the fermentation. Some of the older, more ceremonial gers and families, they actually use a cow's stomach or a horse's stomach, and they hang it. So it'll just be this big billowy sack, and then scoop it out and drink it.
What's it taste like? Is there like a comparable cocktail?
No.
It's not like a White Russian?
No, it's not like, it's very light.
Okay, interesting.
It's not like thick, heavy. Don't think of like fermented milk. It's very watered down in order to ferment.
Okay.
So it's not a thick, heavy beverage. It's not horrible.
But it's super nutrient dense, right?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. You didn't feel like fired out, like it was like your morning
You don't
coffee?
have an option, so the old dude gives it to you, and it's like, 3 drinks, because you always have to drink 3 and then pass it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any custom of exchanging gifts? I mean, were you expected to kind of bring anything or offer anything when you'd stay over?
No, they don't do that as much, but there is always, they're very proud, and they want to, and they're very proud of their culture and their heritage. So compared to some of the other teams, like Kazi was actually much better at it. He knew a lot about it. He knew a lot about Mongolian culture and taught me a lot about it. And that really endeared us to a lot of the herding families, because it is knowing, like, they don't care. You walk in to a yurt, and it's these little doors, they're about that tall. If you walk in, like, most people walk to the right, they're not going to correct you. But if you walk to the left and refuse, the fire is always in the center, and you refuse to, you guests sit on the left, and if you're exiting, you walk the long way out. Like, you always do that circular motion. They really like that. You never put the bottom of your feet towards a fire.
Interesting. Why is that?
It's part of their beliefs. They're like, it's bad luck to do it.
Interesting.
Like, you squat to sit everywhere, just squat on your haunches, but you don't squat to eat. That's bad.
How do you eat? What's the posture?
You have to either sit or stand, but you cannot squat and eat.
Interesting.
So, it's little things like that. And if somebody hands you something, they don't have a word for please and thank you. But like when somebody hands you something, if it's a host and they're trying to be ceremonial, you take it with your right hand and you touch your elbow. So it's always like this, and then you do whatever. But when you hand it back, it's like that. And those little moves mean a lot to them, and it really means a lot. And it's they like to share their culture. The dells that we're wearing, which are their giant long coats, that's actually not appropriation. They actually encourage you to wear them. They are happy that people wear them and spread their culture and take it out. So, and they're also amazing. They're cashmere. They're solid cashmere, and they cost $60.
Wow.
And they're tough as coffin nails. They're great.
And then what about drinking? Is there a drinking culture there at all? I mean, or sometimes when the visitor comes by as an excuse to break out the vodka or whatever else they have?
You avoid drinking there. Drinking's a new culture there.
Okay.
Arag, which is 1-2%, was their big boozy drink before. Now with China providing cheap beer, alcoholism is a huge, huge problem there now.
Okay.
Yeah. You avoid the Sums, the small villages, you avoid them after about 3 p.m. It's a good way to get into a lot of trouble with a lot of drunk Mongolians.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that most of the riders, when they're stopping in these houses, these homes, it's mostly just food and then to bed because they just are on a mission.
Yes. And
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, like, was there any incentive for riders, like, you know, I guess it sounds like the ones that just wanted to finish as quickly as possible, that they were trying to avoid kind of the hospitality and the meals and all that ceremony. They were just trying to get in and out. But I imagine when you're coming across these riders who have been out on the trail for however many days, that you're encountering people in all kinds of conditions. You know, physically broken down, mentally, you know, strained, tunnel vision people. Like, I'm sure you're getting the full spectrum of really extreme human responses to this kind of environment.
Yeah, we do a 2-day orientation and really kind of like stress that. They're like, you're allowed to, but you have to weigh those advantages. Like, you may get a few hours ahead in the field, but then like there's no guarantee on the conditions. And sometimes there may not be a family there. You may end up sleeping, and they have like random little corrals for the winter that have little like lean-to shelters, and they're like, that may be what you get. Because a tent is really, very few riders carry a tent or a sleeping bag because they're so heavy. It just weighs into too much of the kit.
And I guess you're saying the weather at that point, though, is warm enough that you don't need too much.
That year, they had, so really 7 days is when like the winters finish. About 10 days is when the last people that are going to finish really wrap up. That year it was like 5 or 6 days of brutal heat, and like then it was like I think it was like day 6. It just dropped like 45 degrees and started raining, and so then we had hypothermia. We went from like heat exhaustion to hypothermia. A few of the Australian riders who had done fantastic and were not bothered at all because they were used to the heat were immediately, like, one guy was in blue jeans and he got hypothermia.
Wow.
Like lightly hypothermic, but then we pulled him.
And how many people, what other kind of injuries are people dealing with? I mean,
everything. So I did some of that. Like, I watched like an SAS guy who had like brain bleed and had to be evacuated. You know, like broken bones, broken necks.
You showed me a picture. I don't know if it's in your deck, but some of the chafing.
Oh yeah,
that happens with.
That's about riders. Day 3.
Day 3.
That's about day. Almost all the riders get that. That is about day 3. Day 3 of like being in a full gallop for 12 hours in a saddle.
Yeah, the photos you showed me look like the skin of a strawberry or something.
Yeah, it literally wears the skin off the inside of your legs, and that's especially the people who don't train as much. They don't have the resilience.
Yeah,
and they'll end up like, as I said, they'll end up like duct taping their skin and everything just to try and keep going, and that actually will take some people out of the race.
So how many people generally are starting and then finishing these races?
There's 2 variations. You have the competitive racers, and everyone starts off as a racer. And then usually, and it's like clockwork, about 50% pull ahead and about 50% just don't. And then we switch the terminology to those are the racers, and these are the people enjoying an adventure. And this becomes the focus, and if you can keep up, you can stay riding. Because it is still an amazing thing to spend 10 days riding with just...
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
If you're a horse lover, there's a fresh horse. And some of these things are just amazing animals. But after that, you'll start to see them drop. The front pack is usually heat exhaustion, injuries. We've had people dragged. We've had medevacs. The medical team deals with most of that. Everyone has to wear helmets and all that kind of, as much safety gear as we can talk them into wearing. They have to wear the helmets, but hopefully the vests as well. But then the back of the pack, that's usually where you'll see people just exhaust and drop out. And I mean, they're eating Mongolian food. Like, we get good families and good food, but like, if you want a salad, that's like, they threw an onion in their goat and noodles. Like, that is they went fancy. They don't get it. So you are trying to take in fluids as you're losing them rapidly.
Yeah. And is there like a recurring cast of people that do this all the time, or is it fresh faces year in, year out?
Predominantly fresh faces. You'll see...
Wow, that's surprising.
A few crazy people will try 2 or 3. I think like one person's tried 3 times.
Yeah.
But sometimes they'll come back for a second, but almost always it's just one and done.
Wow. And do you think that speaks more to the harshness of the race, or just the fact that it's kind of just, it's a contained experience, and once you've had it, you know, what is it about, I guess, that either keeps people away from coming back, or in some writers' case, and in your case, it sounds like keeps bringing you back?
I get to come back because I enjoy it, and I'm on the other side. When I get food poisoning, I can pull up for a few hours. You know? The writers just got to keep writing. I've heard enough writers say it that have had the experience, and they'll come back for a second time, and they almost always, they'll be talking to the other writers, and like, it's not the same. The first time is sort of the magic time. That's when it's a life-changing experience. A lot of the racers leave the race and then go and make like wild life changes, like quit their jobs, get married, have kids, get divorces. Like, they all are like, it just flip the cot over is a very common thing to happen after the race. Very few people come back for the second time. Those that do, 50-50 love it, 50-50 are like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's also just a huge, I think it's like $25,000.
Oh, wow.
So it's, and you have to train for months.
Yeah.
On expensive animals, and then get out there for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Have you, in your years doing this, have you ever been tempted to try and participate in the race?
Nope. Can't get that light.
Yeah.
It was always, it's 185 pounds.
Yeah, do the weight cut to get down.
Yeah,
you couldn't do one of those like MMA weight cuts where you wear the trash bags and
that's like my left
lose 20 pounds in 2 days. And
I'm 245. I haven't seen 185 in decades.
Yeah.
Never will.
I guess, has there ever been any people that want to bring their own horses? Like, you're just not allowed. It's just totally structured to be through the.
I mean, yeah, you'd have to, that's the whole premise is, and even if you brought it, you'd use it for one leg,
Yeah.
It would be, no. It's, no, it's there, and like a lot of the people that go there, riding horses in Mongolia is, like when I took lessons before the first time I went out there, like the teachers were, the coaches that were teaching me lessons were like, you son of a bitch. I've been around horses my whole life and you don't even know how. Like, it's one of their meccas.
Yeah.
In the equestrian world, Mongolia is kind of like up there for riding. So these people are there, they love the animals, they love the experience, and they're there compared to some of the other adventures they have, you're not getting people that cross over as much. These are horse people who love horses, who want to do a horse race on these horses.
Gotcha.
So.
Fantastic. And so then when is, I assume you're still involved with this program. Are they putting it together? It sounds like it'd be going on next month if it's happening this year.
Two races in Mongolia to make up for the loss over the pandemic. I'm not currently involved. It's like all things, life goes on. They've actually split from the Adventurists and started their own equestrian base, and they have another very different styled horse race called the Gaucho Derby that happens in Argentina now.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, that one.
Another big horse culture.
Yeah, that's again a very different horse culture, but again, talking about one of those meccas, it's to, ride through Argentina, and I think of my buddy Kazi, because he does the vet work down there with the big, giant, weird, bright blue bidet and the blanket as a coat, and he runs around just being a goofball down there drinking yerba mate. So.
Any thoughts of throwing your hat in the ring for that?
No. Horses are giant motorcycles with a neurological system that want to kill you at any point. I ride motorcycles. Like, if I wanted to stop, I squeeze.
Yeah.
Horses like, oh, there's a palm leaf. I've decided that's a snake, and I'm going to kill you. Don't know why that correlates. There's no reason. Yeah. Sometimes there's not even got to be a palm leaf. Sometimes it's just like, the wind blew. Time to kill you.
Yeah. Well, do you think once things calm down, do you have any intent down the road of going back to do more stuff in this kind of capacity as being a fixer for these kind of long distance rally races? Because I mean, there's all kinds. I mean, there's automotive rally races. I'm sure all kinds of different animals. I think there's ones where you take mules out, some that do camels.
Yeah.
You could diversify a little bit, get the full spectrum of the animal kingdom going.
Yeah, I found that after so many years being involved with the race side of it, the tourist race side of it, I found a personal block with it. It started to feel a little colonial. It's like I'm a tour guide. I'm like on these crazy and grand adventures, but ultimately I'm still taking very well-to-do people to very impoverished places. And it's a win-win, but I personally don't feel a connection to it anymore. So, I still will, Shauna, my partner, and I are going to go back to Mongolia. She hasn't seen it. We'll probably actually, I want to go out there. There's in the...
But you've sold the food fantastically.
The food is horrific.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to go?
No, yeah. Oh, it's horrific. But there are eagle hunters out in western Mongolia. There are the camel tribes in the Gobi Desert. I'd like to try and go and see a Gobi bear. There's a lot of beauty in that country. I will pack a ton of Snickers. That's what I live off pretty much.
How do those work in trade as well? I feel like a Snickers bar could get you quite a lot.
I don't trade them. That's gold to me.
Yeah, well, it might be gold to them too if you're ever in a pinch.
I don't
need a new tire for your motorcycle. Just give them a couple Snickers bars.
Yeah. No, I want the Snickers bar. I can find a tire. That food. No, Kazi and I are working on trying to do some actual research-based work. So we'll be doing some, and we're still figuring it all out. Probably doing some virus spread studies. Like he's worked with the WHO on hoof and mouth. I think he did it in Nepal, and I can't remember where the last place he was. But yeah, probably, especially in light of the last few years, that'll be where we shift direction.
Well, that'll be incredible. When you go off and do that, you have to come back and share whatever adventure stories you pick up on those trips with us.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm excited for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Hugh, thank you so much for coming to speak with us tonight. In the meantime, I think we can open it up to any questions from the audience. I don't see Raymond here. Is there any spry members that want to hop up and take the mic around?
I just have a question.
Sure. Here, real quick, I think if we can wait, Lance, if you can run the mic to him, because then we get it picked up on the recording as well.
Oh, okay.
It's right there in the stand. Thanks, Lance.
Your story's really incredible. I'm an ex-pilot and an adventure biker, so I really related to a lot of your stuff. But the one part is you did this ice race, and then there was another 4 or 5 months before the race. You don't speak any Russian or Chinese?
No, very, very little Russian.
Like, how did you navigate that part of it? Because that's so incredible to me.
A lot of the Mongolians are really good. Like they have a unique sign language, and they have a lot of hand signals, but very rarely will you run into even a Mongolian that speaks Russian. Okay. And their language is like Russian and Mandarin had a weird child. It is a very challenge. Like I would go up. Always my famous story that I tell. Favorite story that I tell is you pull up to a gas pump. I'm on a motorcycle. I open the gas tank, and I'm like point to it, and I'm like, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's like durin. You're like durin to fill it up with gas. Yeah. But it's like, and they look at me, and like they go back and forth, and with so much confusion. I'm like, I'm at it. Like you'd think, but like. It's like I was saying, like durin, but it's durin is to fill or to fill up. Durin means binoculars, so I'm just going there and I'm pointing and I'm saying like binoculars, but and they're like, I don't get what this guy's asking for. I'm like, oh, it's. So you just kind of give up, and you just communicate by sign and all that.
Amazing, that's amazing.
Hi there, Andy Medina, 1212. Can we watch your horse fishing video?
Yeah.
All right. Phoebe, can you hit the video, please?
Do you want to set this up real quick with what we're watching?
So the Mongolians have a unique way of wrangling their horses. You see they have these long poles in their hand, anywhere from 14 to 18 feet, and it has a piece of rawhide loop on the end, and the loop is about 3 feet. And the way they catch the horses, they literally like whip it out, and it goes around its neck, and then they spin and twist it really quick, so it just goes and cinches down on their neck. And that's how they catch their horses. And they drive, you know, they'll have a couple that they use to drive them into corrals. Their horses are wild as hell. They are not broken. Like, it's amazing. They will, I think that's the term, is twitch is the proper term. So after they catch them like this, they'll be like, so this is a horse selection video. So like, we would like to look at these horses for the race. We think this will be a good one. There's like vets and horse people there. And there's a guy in the pen, and he chases, and they let it out, and then they lasso it, and then they like inspect it. And I think it's called twitching, where they grab the ears, 2 guys, one on each side, grabs its ears and holds its ears, because that way the horse will just not move, and that's the way you inspect it. Again, the crazy part is they'll do that, they'll twitch it, they'll hold the ears, if I'm using the right phrase, throw a saddle on it. The Mongolians they'll do it bareback sometimes, and they'll jump on it and just break it like a bucking bronco. They just hop on it, and then the guys let go of its ears, and the thing just goes batshit, absolutely batshit, trying to get one of these Mongolian herders off. And it won't. And then after a few minutes, it just settles down. They then put a bridle on it and go ride it off. And that is how they handle their transportation.
Hi, Mike Bortner. You know, these days, people, it seems, the crazier the event, the more people want to do it, naked and afraid. I mean, all kinds of crazy things. And the way you describe this, it sounds almost like, and I mean, it's an epic event, obviously, of endurance and everything else. I'm kind of surprised. Why do you think sort of the way it's going, there isn't like an Andretti clan, you know, that wants to put together a team, or, you know, the people that come together every year as a team and do the Baja 500 or something like that? Why do you think it's just kind of, I did it once, that's cool, now I'm going to do it a second time, and not so much, as opposed to this other thing?
I think a bit of it is the uncertainty. You can be Andretti and put together a Baja 1000 team, and you can spend $2 million and up your chances and increase. It was, I can't remember what year, it was not the first, it was like the second or third year I went out there. The Crown Prince of Qatar came out. It was actually, so everyone who comes on these, it's not just like, you don't get to sign up. You have to be vetted in this community. You have to like be able to prove that you have not only the horse riding abilities, but you know, enough knowledge that you're not going to hurt an animal. You can't just drive it into the ground. And so this sheik came out, and they tried to pull a bunch of stuff, and they're like, no, money can't buy it, and no, you don't get to do that. The only concession he had was he was allowed to enter 5 other racers to be his security, but they also had to be top-level riders. And they were, and they all, I think only one of them finished, and the Crown Prince, who had trained for months, was not one of them. Like, there's no, because of the way it's set up, there's no amount of money, there's no about, like, you can't do it. And, you know, Mario Andretti can drive, but, you know, can he physically handle it?
You can't game it.
Yeah, you can't. It's really just a brutal thing.
On that note, I'm curious, did you ever notice any riders or hear about any riders who are modifying their riding styles based on the experience of being around the Mongolian horsemen or anything like that? I mean, would people ever talk about this as almost like a form of training for their riding careers?
No, it's there's no elegance to it. It's a very rough style. It's not like if you like people who rode dressage aren't going like they have to learn how to handle these horses.
But they're not going to take that skill set back. And
You don't. No, I took a few again after I went and did a couple of rides there, and I came back and I like took some lessons. The instructors that I then took a couple more lessons with were like, "Oh, you're very aggressive with the horse." I was like, "Well, it's going to try and kill you.
yeah,
This is a giant one. The little ones are trying to kill me. This giant one will definitely
yeah.
try."
And you're at
kill
some
me."
like stable in Glendale. Or
Yeah,
like
so
Burbank.
you're like, "Whoa," you know, they're like, "You can take that down a notch." I'm like, "Okay." Oops. Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Any other questions? All right. I think that's it.
All right.
So Hugh, wait.
I have one question. What was like the least desirable dish that you had to eat?
Rotten mutton, rotten goat with rice, or rotten goat with noodles. There literally is those two dishes. There's they make these big pancakes from flour, slice it up into ribbons, and they boil it. The ceremonial dinner was probably one of the worst. They don't chop up anything, so like I went into the tent and they're pouring water. They have an intestine, and they're just pouring water, flushing the fecal matter out of it, and and you open the teepee, and this just waft of this horrific smell hits you, and you're like, oh God, maybe that's just the meat being prepped. And as I was thinking this, they open it's this bit like a cauldron they keep for cooking their food, and they open it, and the steam comes wafting into my face. I was like, no, that's dinner. And it is just this gray water with these gray organs like boiling and fluffing and like you see in a horror film. Like it's just chunks of that. And I know we're wrapping up, but I'm going to finish this story because it's the one about Eric, and I forgot to finish it. And so Eric was the one that set this up, and we were all furious with him. It's like, this is such a bad idea, and this boiling chunks. And they love this. They'll pick a lung right out, and they just cut a cube out and eat it. That's the fantastic part. For our appetizer, it was some liver that they threw in the fire and just charred the outside so it was raw on the inside, and then they wrapped the diaphragm muscles around it. Not the muscles, the diaphragm tissue. I forget which part it is. It's weird. That was our appetizer. And then we go in, so we're just furious. But I have a headlamp. So we're all in the dells, we're all in this yurt, and the Mongolians sit on the host side, and we're sitting on the guest side, and they're serving us. But I knew what I was going to do, and I was going to get Eric for this. And so I was like, yeah, serve it to us, yes. And I would turn on my headlamp. I'd be like, oh, I can't see. And I'd turn on my headlamp, and I'd look around the room right quick. And as they're handing it to me, I would blind everyone. Everyone's night vision was shot. I mean, it's like a little campfire heating this whole thing, and I have my headlamp on full high beam. And then I would eat it. You'd see me put it to my mouth, but then I would and then I'd kill the headlamp. And so everyone's night blind. And then I would just tuck that chunk right out the side of the teepee. And I did that over and over, and because it's like a ceremony, it's like next person. I was like, here you go, Eric. And so it looks like I'm just pounding down these organs and handing it off to Eric, and he's like choking them down, nauseated. And I was like, that was great. I'm going to get up. I got to use the restroom. I get up, grab all the evidence, chuck it into the swamp, come back, and was like, it took until after the dinner for everyone to figure it out, but I was very happy to get him with that one. He ate a lot of organ meat for that.
There we go. Well, I guess he learned his lesson.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Hugh, thank you again so much for coming and sharing your stories with us here tonight. For everybody watching this after the fact on YouTube, we're here every Thursday night. And for everybody in attendance, we're here every Thursday with new stories of adventure from off the beaten path. So we'll see you next week. And have a good night, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Hugh.